Combat has been a main staple of games basically since they were made, but how games implement combat to keep them fresh and entertaining for a player is difficult. Where a puzzle game can keep introducing new systems within the scope of their world to have the players learn, practice, and master new mechanics, combat-oriented games can only add so many systems before it can bloat the game to a detrimental point. Which is impressive, because a lot of games are 10 or even 20 hours long, so how the heck do developers keep making games that stay fun for hours upon end? Unfortunately for me, a lot of the time they don't. Which, you know, is fair. Playing a game for 20 plus hours is a large amount of time to keep someone interested. But games can do it. I think one of the best ways that games can do it for me personally is to add scarcity to the combat. Now, I know that may sound weird, and I don't mean have little to no combat. I just also don't feel like I need to be killing stuff every second of my playtime, but I also don't want to not be killing stuff every second. You get me? There's already some games you've probably thought of that would make you say, yeah, but combat is the main thing in the game. If it was scarce, that game would be worse for it. And I agree, I'm not talking about a game like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta. Combat is the core design pillar in games like those, and the combat never really gets boring on a single or even multiple playthroughs because it is the core part of the player's actions. Everything you do has you slashing or kicking your way through it. Stuck in a room with no way to continue? Kick! But a game like Dragon's Dogma 2, this game, in my opinion, has combat too frequently, at least while traveling. And the combat is good. Heck, it's great. I love the combat in this game. It's the best part. Not that the rest of the game has much to offer, but I digress. But having to fight a clan of goblins or a pack of wolves every time I turn a corner starts to burn me out really quickly. You start to wonder how much is it really necessary to fight all these things. Even if it wasn't burning me out, I also just want to be able to take in the environment around me sometimes, without having to kill a creature to do so. It had been a while since I played all of The Witcher 3, but just playing it for a few minutes here and there for the video, you're not really fighting constantly in that game. Even though it's a game about hunting monsters, the big core of the game is about the characters in the world. The combat is merely how the player and Geralt as a character know how to proceed in this world. It works with the other systems of the game by letting the player decide what parts of the game to interact with. Yes, most quests will end with you fighting and killing something, but there are more than a few other ways to solve problems. Or even other things you can do during a play session, like play Gwent, explore, play Gwent, do a treasure hunt, play Gwent. The point is, the combat isn't the only thing trying to keep you engaging with the game. There has to be that downtime between combat sections to not exhaust the player, and I guess I should say that Dragon's Dogma 2 has downtime with story exposition and other mechanics. They just aren't good enough to make me want to finish the game. These examples can start to get murky when you look at a game like Elden Ring compared to Dragon's Dogma 2. Because on the surface, you would think I would have a similar complaint with Elden Ring. You know, there's a combat everywhere, the whole game's about combat, there's no other ways to do stuff. Even the first enemy you see in the world is a boss that you have to fight to solve the problem of getting rid of him. But one of the core design choices From Software made was to allow the player to explore at their leisure. You hardly have to kill any bosses in Elden Ring, let alone random grunts you'll find throughout the world. The choice to do combat is the only option the game gives you to solve a problem, but when and how you choose to do that combat is up to you entirely. Torrent is faster than any enemy you'll encounter in the lands between. Heck, even just regular sprinting can get you out of most situations if you don't want to engage with an enemy attacking you. And when you do choose to engage with a boss or mini-boss or enemy, the combat isn't very complex. You'll never be doing like an AAB RB down A to perform a damage combo. You'll most likely mash the right bumper a lot, or hold down the right trigger for a second or two to get your damage off. Because the fun of the game isn't learning new inputs you can do, it's learning the boss's attack patterns, movements, and phase transitions. Most games have you learning what bosses do or are weak to. Games have done and still do this all the time. Older Legend of Zelda games have bosses act like mini puzzles where you use the items you have found in the dungeons or worlds to exploit a weakness in their attacks to make them vulnerable. Games like Lies of of P and Sekiro use a parrying mechanic where you break a stagger bar and get your damage in lickety-split. And in Lies of P, it stays fresh by using new weapons with different attack speeds or ranges to find new opportunities and playstyles to have your turn to attack. Similar to how older Monster Hunter games didn't always feel like an action game. They could feel more like a real-time turn-based game where you and the monster were waiting for the other to make a mistake to tip the scale in their favor. Monster Hunter is the peak of getting hours of playtime out of combat alone, at least for me, without it feeling boring. With 14 different weapons to use in most of the mainline games, all of the different skills and armors you can use and craft, there really is an endless amount of time you can spend in a Monster Hunter game just by changing up how you play or even what game you play. Capcom is always changing up how these games play with new gimmicks, keeping the combat fresh. So whether you're going back to take a swim with the monster, flying around the monster with the ungodly strength of this bug, or using the flashy anime techniques to dodge and destroy the monster beneath your mighty sword. There's options. Unfortunately, a lot of these have to be played on emulators nowadays because fuck Nintendo. But you can still go back and play these games if the one you're currently playing is starting to get stale. And because combat is the only core gameplay loop Monster Hunter has, the developers can mold the rest of the game systems around it by enhancing it. Need new recipes for food? Go hunt something. Need materials for potions? Go gather while something might hunt you! Everything in this game pushes you to engage with the hunting aspect, but keeps it interesting by giving you multiple ways to engage with it, like the previously mentioned weapons, armor skills, and gimmicks the games you're playing has. And the game is just fun to play. All of the Monster Hunters are. The combat is some of the best for this type of genre the game has. It's why they're still so popular. But combat doesn't have to be good to keep people engaged either. It just depends on what the game is trying to do. The Oblivion remaster came out recently, and since it was the game that got me into playing RPGs, I've been playing a fair bit of it already. And the combat in not only Oblivion, but all of the Elder Scrolls games is bad. Like, we can all admit, it's not very good. I like that though. When I play an Elder Scrolls game, I don't want to have a combo attack or a spell weaving or animation canceling. I want to hit a guy with a hammer, then go hit another guy. The combat in these games is more of a vehicle for exploring a world rather than learning boss fights or attack combos. And I really do think that if the Elder Scrolls had a more involved combat, it would detract from the exploration aspect. There were times in Elden Ring, for instance, where I wouldn't want to explore a cave, because what I come to a FromSoft game for is intricate, detailed level design and learning boss fights and attack patterns. You know, all the stuff I said before about the game. But when exploring these caves and catacombs, I wouldn't always leave them feeling like it was a good use of my time. But for Oblivion, the itch I'm trying to scratch is the exploration of the world I'm immersed in, not the combat that gets me to explore. Now, I wouldn't be opposed to some enemies having more mechanics to learn, or some caves and ruins feeling more rewarding to explore, but for me, it's just easier for a game like Oblivion to make me want to go in a cave because I don't know what's gonna be there. But the best way I think that all good games keep you engaged in their combat systems is by doing something interesting to it. I wanted to say new here, but most of the games I love don't do new things. Chained Echoes is just a turn-based game, but with a party switch in combat. No leveling system and 2 different fighting systems, the Sky Armor and the On Foot. It's pretty engaging for its 30+ hour campaign as well. The same goes for Expedition 33. Its reactive combat isn't brand new. It's a refinement of a system that other games like Paper Mario and Sea of Stars also had. That, along with everything else Expedition 33 does extremely well to make it a fantastic game. It's the addition of adding a what-if to the design of a game. That's all a game like Chained Echoes really did when simplified to its base form. It said, what if you could use all of your party members, or most of, in combat at the same time, by rotating them out based on their pros and cons and building a team you truly like to enjoy the combat. Games that have combat in them typically have them be the centerpiece of the entire game. It's the thing the developers intend for you to do the majority of the time you're playing, so it should be fun. But how developers go about getting you to engage with it depends on the other system the game has. If combat is the only major system, how can players change up the combat to keep it interesting for themselves? If combat is a simple vehicle to get you from one narrative section to another, how does it stay fresh and not get repetitive on your way to those narrative sections? I go back to what I said at the start of the video because I think it's a good starting point. Having a scarcity to combat, whether it's by design or player choice, really does help to prevent burnout. Letting players be able to skip over combat when they wish to, or by making sure combat isn't a long and tedious process every time it happens, helps as well. Any turn-based game with random encounters gets annoying at some point. Randomly being stopped, having to watch a full load in animation, load out animation, and do the fight takes so long that it kills my motivation to want to start the game in the first place. The other thing we talked about is to make sure the combat system works with and not against the other systems in the game. A game that only has good combat gets boring fast. You can watch my Monster Hunter Wilds video if you want to hear about a system like that. But games that have a talent tree or a skill unlock progression system need a point. I should be able to change how I approach combat with the skills I get from them. If all they do is make me do more damage, what's the point of it other than clicking a button? It's important to say most games that have these systems have both, but still I would like more customization from these systems. I, like most developers, want more people to finish games. I hate seeing so many of my favorite games have less than a 50% of the players get the achievement for finishing the game. And making sure a game stays engaging for a whole playthrough, especially for a long game, is difficult, because everyone has a different opinion on what is and isn't engaging for them. But you can still do things to make a game fun and memorable even when using mechanics and systems that we've seen in games before. I don't mean to brag when I say this, but I've been playing a lot of really fun games recently. And so I've just been thinking about why they're so fun for me and why I enjoy them so much. And so I wanted to make this video to try and help others think about games as well. Being introspective about game mechanics can help you appreciate a piece of media you enjoyed more. At least for me it does. I think understanding why game developers do the things they do can help you appreciate them more. But I hope you got something out of this video. If you did, leave me a like, comment, and subscribe. Anywho, bye-bye!